Have you ever heard someone on the news say the economy is strong, and you're kind of left wondering, what does that actually mean? It feels like this giant, complicated machine that runs our lives, but nobody ever gave us the user's manual. Well, today, that changes. We're going to dive into macroeconomics, the guide to understanding that big economic picture.
Right? We throw that word around all the time. The economy. But what is it? I mean, really? At its core, it's the grand total of everything. It's every coffee you buy, every app someone builds, every road the government paves. It's all of it, all at once. See, if microeconomics is all about looking at the individual trees, your personal budget or how a single company is doing, macroeconomics is about taking the helicopter ride up to see the entire forest. We're not worried about one specific tree. We're trying to figure out the health of the whole ecosystem.
So, where do we even begin with this user's manual? How on earth do you make sense of something so massive? Well, it turns out it all kind of boils down to two fundamental, powerful forces. Just think about it like this. What does absolutely everyone in the country, and that includes you, me, businesses, the government, what does everyone want to buy? That's the total demand. And then on the other side, what can all the businesses and workers in the country actually produce? That's the total supply. It's this constant dance between these two that drives literally everything. All right, so if the economy is this giant engine, how do we know if it's running well or if it's about to stall? We've got to look at the dashboard. So let's start decoding the key parts and indicators, and we'll kick things off with the demand side. First up is something called aggregate demand, or AD for short. This sounds complex, but it's not. Just think of it as the total spending power in the entire country. It's the sum of everything everyone is willing and able to buy at any given time. It's basically the gas pedal of the economy. So what's pushing that gas pedal? Well, it's really made of four key parts. First, you've got C, for consumption. That's us, the regular people, buying groceries, phones, movie tickets. Then there's I, for investment. This is businesses spending on new factories, software, and equipment. G is for government spending. Think roads, schools, defense. And last, XM, for net exports. That's just what we sell to other countries minus what we buy from them. Add them all up, and boom, you have the total demand. Now for the other side of that coin, aggregate supply. If demand is what we want to buy, supply is what we can actually make. This is all about our country's total productive capacity. It's determined by our workforce, our level of technology, our infrastructure. Really, it's the total potential of our economic engine. Okay, so we've got demand and we've got supply. But how do we know if the engine is purring or sputtering? We look at the main gauges on the dashboard. And the three big ones you'll always hear about are national income, inflation, and unemployment. Let's start with that first gauge, national income. And the most famous measure here is something you've definitely heard of, GDP, or gross domestic product. The easiest way to think about GDP is as the economy's speedometer. It tells us the total value of everything produced in the country over a year. If GDP is rising, it generally means the economy is speeding up. But just going faster doesn't tell the whole story, does it? And this brings us to a really, really important distinction. Economic growth, that's simple. It's just about the economy getting bigger, a higher GDP. But economic development asks a much more profound question. Is life actually getting better for the people in it? It looks at stuff like health, education, and general well-being. It's a crucial reminder that a bigger economy isn't always a better one for everybody. Okay, our next gauge is inflation. Think of this as the engine's temperature gauge. Inflation is that general feeling you get when the price of everything, from your coffee to your rent, is just steadily climbing. Your money just doesn't buy as much as it used to. A little bit of inflation can be okay, but too much means that engine is starting to overheat. And that third big gauge is unemployment. This one basically measures the engine's efficiency. Now, a key detail here. It's not just about people without jobs. It's specifically the percentage of people who are able to work and are actively looking for a job but just can't find one. A high unemployment rate tells you the economy isn't firing on all cylinders. And, it turns out unemployment isn't just one single problem. There are different types. There's frictional, which is just that normal short-term gap when you're moving between jobs. Structural is more serious. That's when industries change and skills become outdated. You've got seasonal unemployment for jobs like, say, a ski instructor in the summer. And then cyclical, which is the kind that rises when the whole economy hits a downturn. Okay, so we've looked at the dashboard, we get demand, supply, GDP, inflation, unemployment. But why does any of this matter? What's the point?
Well, it matters because this is what allows us to actually try and steer the economy.
This is where the rubber really meets the road. You got to understand, governments and central banks are staring at this data constantly to make huge decisions. When they change interest rates or launch a new spending program, they are using these macroeconomic tools to try and manage inflation, fight unemployment, and keep the economy from either stalling out or overheating. They are literally trying to keep the car driving smoothly down the highway.
But, and this is a big but, like any tool, this macroeconomic lens isn't perfect. To be fair, and to get the full picture, we have to talk about what this bird's eye view can sometimes miss. The dashboard doesn't always show you what's happening in the back seat. So what are some of these blind spots? Well, for starters, those huge aggregate numbers like GDP can hide massive inequality. The average income could be going up just because the richest people are getting way, way richer, while everyone else is treading water. Second, a lot of the models have to assume things are simpler than they are in the messy real world. And third, it's almost impossible to accurately measure all the unreported activity out there, the so-called black economy, which can actually be a pretty big chunk of the whole picture. And that brings us to our final and maybe most important question. Look, macroeconomics is an incredibly powerful tool for understanding our world, no doubt, but knowing it has blind spots forces us to ask, what are we missing when we only look at the big picture? What important stories about real people, their communities, and what it actually means to live a good life are getting lost behind those big headline numbers? That's something to think about the next time you hear someone talking about the economy.